Hello everyone and welcome back. Today what we're going to be doing is kind of just biting the bullet and diving right in. So I decided to just kind of take my own advice here. And we're going to go ahead and kind of dive into the keyboard and the front and all this sort of chaos. I was thinking about doing some of these weird side parts, like some of the little knickknacks here, and like I caught out before, like some of the stuff back here. But yeah, I kind of wanted to take my own advice and think, the most important things that you could do in like the early stages is knock out the biggest shapes. And this isn't really something we can avoid anymore. Obviously, like the keyboard is easily, in my opinion, the most difficult part. So I've been trying to sort of tiptoe around it. But these shapes here, this giant area of space, like these arms that I've labeled them as, like these are some of the biggest parts of this asset. So no use sort of like trying to avoid that anymore. Let's go ahead and dive right in. I've just sort of put a couple images together in Photoshop, some key reference images that we can look at. And I wrote this out with my mouse, so please excuse the horrible handwriting, but front plate / bottom lines. What I mean by that is, well, the front plate is kind of this guy. We have some adjustments to do to it, bolted into place. We also sort of have these bolts up here that kind of indicate how everything's put together. The bottom lines are referring to these guys here that are sort of going across and more or less keeping things together. Key layout, so just sort of making these keys and putting them into position, not necessarily adding the arms here, but just getting the keys into position and then the arms themselves, which I think it would be easiest to start with these inner pieces here. Like this is really a pretty intimidating piece overall. Like this is kind of the crux of everything. So I want to break this up as much as I can. Honestly, I think if I have the keys in place and I have these guys in place, then it's a matter of just connecting them. And even though I still think that's kind of a lot to wrap my head around, it'll at least give me something to work off of. It's not just like going from one key, wrapping around, going through. Like that's too complicated. Like give yourself something to lean on, and setting these two things up will definitely do that. We almost certainly will not get through all of this in this part. I think that's pretty safe to say. But let's go ahead and just sort of do what we can. And I want to start with this front plate. So I kind of want to fix out the shape a little bit more. These bolts, as well as this bolt, make it very clear to me that the way that we have it set up is wrong. It looks like this should be a lot more thin, and then this actual shell should be like sticking out here so that this has something to sort of rest and bolt onto, as well as maybe have a part here extruded up against this face, just so there's like actual reasons for these bolts to be here. They have to have something to actually puncture through to. So we'll have to do a couple modifications to that. Then we'll add these bars across. They seem to have some sort of contraption they're connected to. Looking at it in a bit more detail, it honestly seems like maybe this piece here, and I could be wrong, but that piece there might actually be connected to this piece. Maybe not. I might save those for later. But regardless, we're going to get the buttons in and these guys afterwards. But yeah, let's start with that front plate. Let's see. So let's kind of just isolate these two pieces, because this is mainly what we're working from. So we're going to have some extrusions to do on this guy. Mainly a rectangular one here, extruding forward, and the top piece extruding out as well. Neither of these are going to be overly complicated. I'm just going to go into my cut tool, add a slice there, bring it all the way to the bottom, and then like close it off here. From here, all I have to do is just kind of take all the extra vertices, scale them so that they're straight, and I just want to make sure I snap it so that it's the same thickness as this guy. That way we know when we do it on both sides that they're even. But we can even take it a step further and just clean this up a little bit altogether. Just snap that down. Merge those vertices. Some weird shading is going on here. I'm going to go ahead and harden that edge and soften these edges. I'm going to turn off wireframe. Okay, it seems to be more or less fine. It's mostly like these edges being a little bit weird, but we'll be cleaning all that up later. Let's go ahead and do that on the other side. We're kind of at a stage, and I think I've brought this up before, where there's enough differences between the two sides that I really don't want to just mirror things over anymore, because we have like this shape here and this shape, and yeah, we can't really be mirroring things over. So if you can catch these things earlier on, like that's obviously ideal, but little changes like this don't eat up a lot of time, so it's just kind of an ideal way of thinking. So snap that into place. Let's go ahead and clean this up where we can. Yeah, it's just some tightness in the shading, that's what's going on. Snap that down. Merge those vertices, and let's go ahead and isolate these two bodies again. And what I want to do on this guy is kind of push these faces forward. I don't want it to be like super thin. Let's see if we can get a good angle that kind of shows how thin the whole thing actually is. It's just one of those angles where it's really not the easiest. We might want to bust out this guy. So this part seems a lot thinner than we have it currently set up. It's kind of hard to get the camera in there. Let's see, maybe this guy will do a better job. It's this kind of thickness that I'm going for, yeah. So maybe I don't want it to be like we'll keep it like this thick, but push it all forward a little bit. Like grabbing these faces. This guy and this guy. We should be able to move that without any major issues. And let's put our pivot into the corner of it and just kind of snap that. Pivot is definitely not in the right spot. Snap it here. Very nice. So now we can extrude this forward so the bolts have a place to properly go into. I'm thinking, because we're going to have to do a cut up here and extrude this out. I think we should do that first before anything else. So let's go ahead and set this up. I'm going to utilize this cut we have here, which seems to be perfectly lined up, which is great. We're essentially just cutting a line across the bottom of this, and I want to do it on the other side as well. So yeah, super easy. We're just going to cut. Just making sure it's just that line, and just snapping it here. Nice. We're going to need another line so we can actually extrude something from it. So let's go down a little bit. Straighten that out. Cool. Let's mimic the same thing on the other side. Straighten that out and snap it up. And then we can make another cut. Flatten that out, and then we want to have it the same height, so I'm just going to hold V, vertex snap along Y, and just line it up right there. And now we can sort of select these guys. We have this sort of L shape, and hit Control E, extrude it out. And kind of bring it into where it tucks right under. We're not going to get that perfect, so I'm just going to now manually grab these guys, center pivot, and just snap it into place. I also like how it actually covers this up. That hole was something I was going to have to deal with at some point. So with everything unhidden, we kind of have like a nice, it kind of shows it here, like metal into plastic. It makes me think if I should carry the metal through underneath as well. That's something I'd want to find better reference for. I'm just looking at the 3D model off screen. It's hard to say if that's exactly how it's going. It seems to be thicker and then thinner. That's something that we can confirm right there. But regardless, I think we should kind of define this area a bit better. So what I'm doing is adding a cut from the top to the bottom. We can even all that out. Do the same on this side. And this is just in case we do want to have something else there or have some more constraints. We have some geometry to back it up. Okay, and this top guy, I kind of like that. I like how it has something to properly go into. Nice. The shape of this guy also needs a little bit of work. If I go back to that image, it sort of cuts in, goes down, and then I think a different reference shows that it goes out. This one doesn't cut in, so it's kind of left up to interpretation as to how I want to go about it. I don't know if the cut in is really necessary, and we already have the sort of like popping out bit, which I'm liking. So we might just want to keep that. We definitely made this a bit thicker when we pushed it forward. So I want to see if I can thin that out a little bit, and then it seems like this is not liking this very much. So let's get back to that top view where they all kind of seem like they're thick here and then they thin out, and that's something we should probably strive for as well. This is just a super loose test, but obviously like this is a big n-gon, so we're going to have to clean that up a little bit. But we're in a relatively good position, and we just need to cut down, and then it should be fine. So let's just start with that. Kind of have to straighten these out. And I think this will be a lot faster if we got rid of these edges here. So Control backspace to get rid of the vertices attached to them. On the front they're fine, but on the back we want to get rid of that. That way we don't have all these vertices cutting through. So I'm going to put a connection there and a connection there. Connection there and a connection there. And let's just, yeah, we'll go through and just add cuts. Then we'll just have to snap the ones on the bottom rather than all the vertices going through multiple cuts. Once again, like this is something you could totally mirror, but this hole here is kind of preventing it on the left side. We could clean that up, but at that point, the timing would probably be more or less the same, so there's really no point. So let's go ahead and just holding V, snap them across the x-axis to make sure they're even. Nice. So now that gives us the freedom to kind of pull these out. The bottom does not like that very much. I'm wondering if this would be a really cheap way of doing it. Like poke face on the bottom. Not gonna work, eh? If we cut forward, we could pull out. Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. Add a cut on the bottom as well. Actually, what would be faster would be to delete this. Take these edges here. Extrude them and snap it forward, which would save some time. All that means now is we have sort of vertices that aren't connected to anything, but we can fix that up later, probably after we do our booleans. But yeah, now we can like pull these back. I'm trying to think of the best way to do that. We kind of don't want to do these very end ones, but like starting here, we can have it be a bit thicker. This, of course, is not working very well with it being super pinched. But we're heading in the right direction. Let me see. This one and this one need to be smoothed out a little bit more. Same with this one, and I think this one. But mostly we need to worry about these guys here. What I want to do here is just sort of delete these guys, extrude these out, and just sort of have them flat against the metal that we recently extruded. So I'm just going to extrude. It's definitely not what I want, so let's just manually extrude out. This one's inverted for some reason. We can flip that face. But I think if we snap it here and snap it level here, They should be flush with the metal pieces. Yeah. So in theory, we could extrude it back towards itself. Merge those vertices. So that's connected. There's an issue up here. Yeah. Let's snap this up. Fill that hole. I think that works. If I take this off, yeah, it's pressed up against that metal we recently extruded, and we could even extrude it out again and have this come up as a square. So if I extrude this, square it out, snap that down, delete these faces. This is a lot to take in, but I'm just really experimenting more or less with shapes. I want this to be squared off. If I fill this hole now, how would that look? Definitely a bit awkward, but that's nice that way. Nice. Okay, we're gonna go with that. So what I essentially did was I took it from being this sort of like weird pinched area into continuing the pattern up, and having this sort of area poking through. But what I want to do now is sort of add a cut, which we can then, this is just a quick example, we could extrude out. So this is still the metal part. I'm going to undo that for now until we get things looking good on the other side. Let's isolate this because this is going to get a little bit complicated. Let's see, the way that I did that, I think what I'm going to do is just try and duplicate it. So I'm going to delete this half minus this area with the cut. I'm going to keep that. So delete that. Move the pivot here, freeze transforms, delete history, mirror X, delete that on that side, and then delete the square on this side. Which is a lot easier said than done. Like so. Let's pull that out. Frankenstein this guy back together. Snap this vertex here. Okay, let's start by merging those. And then we need a cut here so that can all connect. Gonna snap this vert here, merge, and then this should be an isolated hole. Are the, oh, I need to attach it up here as well. Interesting, it's still not treating this like it's attached. So we have this vertex. It's very much attached. We have this vertex, which is very much attached. This vertex. So if I extrude from this, it's reversed for some reason. Let's go ahead and hope that if we merge this down and snap it into place. And sort of merge those vertices that we can snap that up, and hopefully when we merge it, it'll act properly. It seems like it's acting proper. Oh, have we deleted the entire front? We have. Let's go ahead and merge all of our verts. And fill hole. Fill those holes. And that should do it. Okay, so I think we have the appropriate thickness on this guy now. This is pressed up right against that, which is nice. If I do look at the reference, it's going to be kind of hard to show. You might be able to see it here. There's like little line cuts at the bottom of the sky, and technically that is the same piece. But I think for something like that, it'll be safer to do when we are actually doing all these little legs, just so we have the numbers proper. It should be the same amount of numbers up here. But I don't want to mess with that right now. Let's go ahead and get the bolts in on the sides, and then we'll see if we can start maybe just getting like one of these arms into place. And then like I've really been trying to think of a way to sort of automate the system of duplication as far as that stuff goes, because like with these guys, they're all very mechanical. So you'd think you could just put a pivot somewhere and do a smart duplicate around a fixed rotation point. But the issue with that is that this is not a perfect circle. Like, it just wouldn't work. We've done that before with the booleans on this, and there was a lot of like kind of manhandling of the shapes. So we might just have to like manually put those in, which I'm dreading a little bit. But anyways, let's get the bolts. Let's get the bolts into position. So we have 1, 2, 3 screws. And 1, 2, 3. It's making me think I should probably line this up again first. I think it's a group, right? Yep. Just snapping that back. Let's get the bolts ready to puncture through. Actually, just going to push this all in a little bit, just because we actually have reference for how thick this part is. Like you can tell it's really not as thick as it was before. So I'm just going to push that all in a bit. And now we can do it. Okay, booleans. We have done 1,000,000 booleans on this guy so far. So explaining the process for this is a little bit redundant, but I'm not going to sit here in silence and make this really awkward for you guys. So let's have me explain it again. I'm just going to put the cylinders where I want to cut holes, and then we'll stick a screw in. I should probably keep the reference in shot as far as where I'm doing this. So one kind of near the top. We don't have that sort of cut, so I'm just going to keep it in the top right. Control D, I'm going to duplicate this kind of to where this bend starts. and then Control D again, and I want to put it somewhere where there's like a decent amount of space where I might add these cut lines, because they're going to be roughly like yay high, give or take. So I want to adjust for a little bit of a comfort room for that kind of stuff. So let's pull these a little bit further away from the wall. Positioning a little bit like so. We also have it being bolted down up here. I might go ahead and do 2 up here since we have a lot of room. And with this guy in the middle, it suggests that maybe we should have it on the ends because we want this to be symmetrical, right? So there's one. I'm going to go ahead and poke face so that I can put my pivot in the middle and mirror that guy over the pivot. Of course, we don't need these edges anymore, so we'll just get rid of them. And I think we're good to duplicate this over. Mesh combine on these guys. Let's put our pivot in the middle, just holding X for grid snap. Freeze transform, slate history, mirror over X. It's good, we're not intersecting with any of the pieces on the right side here. We can go ahead and isolate and let's go ahead and save first. This seems like something that might blow up just because of how weird the shape is and how large some of these like n-gons are. So let's save really quick, and we'll go ahead and open up our Boolean tool. Click our main, shift click our Boolean mesh, make sure it's on difference. Okay, as long as it's not puncturing through, it's fine. But it's not doing the perfect Boolean that we're looking for, in the sense that it's not actually like filling in the cuts, which means some improper geometry somewhere on here, but we'll figure that out when we're doing the UVs most likely. Delete history and base objects, because UVs kind of start revealing the stuff, because you're more or less looking at faces much more in like a much more naked way. That's a weird way to describe it, but it's kind of like the only kind of like wording I can think of. Let's extrude these down. And the thing is, we're never going to see the bottom of these because they're like covered by a metal plate, so I'm just not puncturing all the way through. This one enough room for a bolt. We can go ahead and fill hole and poke all those faces. Nice. Do the same thing with these guys. Holding shift and dragging, we can extrude, shift right click, fill hole, and then poke face on these guys. Nice. I already like having more detail on the front. Like, man, we've spent so much time from like this line backwards, but the front, which is what we're looking at mostly, has been like completely bald. So I'm really excited to get some keys in here, and I think it's really going to start tying everything together a lot faster than you'd think. Let's duplicate some of these bolts and place them around, just snapping them in, scaling them down and pushing them forward. They're definitely sort of bulging out a little bit, which I like. Goes without saying, this is all baked way down. Can duplicate this to the other side. feel like I kind of want to push them in a little bit more. Not the biggest deal in the world. But let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, and then we can't forget about the guys on the top. Let's just isolate it because our camera angles are getting a little bit insane with the amount of stuff going on. Rotate them 90 degrees. But I'm really liking the combination of these big, medium, and small shapes kind of everywhere. Like this is such a good example. Like we have this big shape, we have these medium shapes, and then the screws, of course, are the small shapes. And that brings a lot of visual interest to this prop. That's kind of what really caught my attention and why I wanted to do it at the start. It's just the amount of variety and sort of intricacy in the design. Okay, nice. So we have that guy all bolted down. Man, that looks good. Those little details go a long way. Even when we have these like cuts, it's gonna bring a lot to that. So yeah, front plate. I think we got that nice and updated. Bottom lines. So the stuff cutting across, it's like this shape here. I have no clue what exactly is going on with that thing. I suppose I could just look at the proper reference for it. So, okay, this larger piece looks like it's maybe attached to this. It seems like it's its own contraption that isn't necessarily attached to these lines. So I think these lines will eat up a little bit of time, but not a lot. So we could probably finish them this part. Yeah, it's interesting seeing how everything's connected. Like these things, I think we'll do later. I'll put them under the extra details we need to add category. So I'm just taking a screenshot of it. Making some arrows. I don't know if this is being picked up by the recording or not. But I'm starting this little section up here of little details we have to add once the keyboard is finished. And these are the final pieces. So far I have like these rollers that I want on the top bar that we made. This little contraption on the side that we've talked about. These details on this back piece. And then now these little guys. So these are all like the very last thing, like the icing on the cake. Because everything else is mostly done. Once the keyboard is finished, everything else is, as far as I'm concerned, done. And we can bring it into Zbrush. We're still in the Maya phase. Spent a lot of time on this. I also like having screws on the bottom. Do I think I'm ever going to do a render of the bottom of this? Probably not. But the reason I like having these little details is because I want to have a marmoset viewer where it's like a 360 rotation, and little details like that, if people do choose to sort of look at the model, people really appreciate that stuff. And if I'm going to put it in my portfolio, I want to make sure it's something that I'm kind of proud of from every angle. Where was that? There it is. So these bars, one there, this one, I don't really know what's going on. So let's just do this one, and this one. This first one is really simple. It is just a bar. So let's start. Sometimes you just gotta just say, screw it. Let's just start. Honestly, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I am dying to get into the Zbrush component of this. Like, I started this tutorial like months ago. And I feel like I would have been done the whole thing by now if I wasn't recording. And that's not me saying like, oh, I don't enjoy this, but it's like, no, it's just, I really have to take my time because I can only do these when, like for example, my roommate isn't home because he might be on the phone or something like that. But yeah, it's like there's only certain times I can do this, and that's why it's taking so much longer. And then I also am trying to explain things rather than do. So, all right, let's see where this first one is lined up. It's lined up right in front of the leg, and then the second one is lined up right in the middle of the leg. Which means this guy is pretty much lined up at the base of this triangular piece, which is nice. What is it sticking into, though? I imagine the base of the triangular piece. But how would that make any sense? That would mean that this is higher up, which it almost certainly is. So we can just go ahead and raise this up to about here. I think that's safe to assume that that's correct. Just in case, I'm going to look at some more reference. Oh yeah, this is definitely way higher than this triangular piece. So I'm just going to raise it to kind of like a conservative height right here. I'm going to grab this, which is a bit more complicated to do. Of course it is. Let's add cuts and vertex snap them to be level. And we'll cut all the way around. Okay, isolate this guy. Cut, cut. Interesting, this doesn't seem to be connected in any way, which is not good. These feet pieces definitely need some work. Let's just snap the height before we delete anything. Delete. Let's just see if we can bridge this across. And then bridge this. If that's all we have to do, that's a bit of a headache saver. The height there is flushed out. This part is still a little funky. But I think that's fine. I think it makes sense that the metal part would go down that far. So that's the method I'm going to go with. This side is connected though, so this side seems to be a lot better with this stuff. It's a more cohesive mesh in general. But yeah, bridge. Do the same thing here. I love that piece there and how sort of complex it's getting just on its own. But yeah, this guy we want to kind of center. Honestly, almost just put it where the screw is. In fact, that honestly might be why the screw is there. If I look at this, the screw's pretty low. That's a really noisy scan. But yeah, we have a bolt right there. And like, what would it be doing other than hosting this bar going through, right? Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. It does make me want to put it down a little bit lower. So let's start by bringing this in. And maybe we'll just do this one bar, this part. Let me just check how long we've been recording. 45? We'll see. Depends how long all this takes. I'm going to isolate these two and then grab these faces. Can hit shift period to grow selection, or maybe not. I can just select this ring. I do find in Maya the one thing that's the most inconsistent is grow selection, but it might be because this is a Boolean with a bunch of weird edges going on. But essentially what I'm just doing is I'm snapping this down to the height of this bar, because I want it to be a little bit lower. I want it to have room down here, which means we have to bring these bolts down. Snap it to the side. Okay, is there any things of note here? It kind of has like some extrusions. Just some sort of mechanically extrusions to them. I suppose we could add those in, but I also want to do a Boolean cut here so it has that sort of like puncturing metallic bevel around it. This is going to be a super easy one though, because we can just duplicate this. I'm going to shift select this. This is the duplicated version. And I can literally just scale it slightly so it's going through. Making sure it's not going in too far. And we can just Boolean that. Freeze transform, delete history on these two guys. New Boolean operation. Clean up, delete history of base objects. So we've cut a hole through, kind of. We're still gonna have to extrude and then just fill hole. Should be fine. Extrude, fill hole. And then I'm just going to slide this in a little bit. And same on this side. Let's go and add a couple of those, just sort of like there's like rings, and the side has something else going on. I don't think it really has to be too detailed, but this part's kind of fun, just sort of like freestyle hard surface modeling. So I'm just adding a cut, beveling it, so we have two cuts now. We can extrude this a little bit, bring it in, something like that, and then add a line in the middle, bevel that, extrude that down, just like fun stuff like this. I find this just kind of like they're tiny details that no one will ever notice, so you can kind of just do whatever you want with them. Like, and it's subtle, but it makes it seem like it has more of a purpose, right? Like there's something going on there. And I might do another one and then two on the other side. We can have this one maybe extruding inwards. And then coming out, so it's kind of just the opposite of the other one. And then in the middle, just a very simple ring. Just so that when you're looking at it from a distance, you're just like, oh, like there's shapes, there's something going on there. I may have overdone it, but I'll leave it for now. On this side, I'm just going to make it a bit more simple. And then maybe Add some cuts on either side. Bring them in like so, and then maybe just like have that coming off like that. And then this one, extrude in and have like a sharper edge. I guess all just for fun, right? There's really no purpose to this. Well, there's not no purpose to it, but it's mostly like, it's just like tiny little visual details. So something like that could just be a bit of fun. I think the sort of arms of the keys interact with these guys and wrap around them in certain ways. So there's like one here. I know there's another one underneath this bar going across, and then a final one somewhere else. So one, yeah, going across there. The back, I think, is something a little bit different. It might be because this one has this like spider web thing, which I do like. I do want to do that still. I think it's very different, and it would make a typewriter like this stand out even more. But this middle one's cool because, yeah, like some of these keys are wrapping around it in very specific ways. This one has a spring on it, which I think is cool. Maybe we'll focus the next part on wrapping these guys up, and then we'll get the keys into place. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there for now. We didn't get a ton done, but I'm really glad we sorted out this front plate. Got the spacing a little bit better on everything. And yeah, what more could you honestly ask for? I think what I could ask for is to flatten at the bottom, have the top curved but the bottom not curved. We'll try that. We can always fix that. And then one thing that I did want to do is add cuts here. Okay, let's isolate these two guys. I want to add a cut here, here, and then get it out. I want to have it flush with this. And then delete, delete, delete. You'll see exactly what I'm doing in a second. And the reason for that is we can then take these edges, extrude them forward, and have it flush here. Bridge, bridge, bottom should be good. Maybe having the bottom flat is a bad idea. I'm gonna undo a lot here. Keep that wave. But yeah, I'm gonna do the same thing. Add a cut here, and I'm holding shift just so I know it's the same on both sides. Cutting where this sort of connects. Flattening this out. Boom, boom, boom. I suppose I could just delete that one actually and then extrude this forward. Put it there. Merge vertices. So it's like coming up even with it. And it's going to be really nice when we do it in Zbrush. And these are like separated pieces and there'll be like a visual seam there. And then I also like how this is all going to be rounded out really nice. This is going to look so much nicer when it's all properly beveled. But even so, we got some cool looking sort of mechanical pieces going on in Maya so far. Delete the top piece. Have that going there. Yeah, that's looking pretty good on its own. Honestly, I'm happy with that. Everything together. So much nicer to have this front piece like looking proper and having a little bit of details on that. Like once we have the keys in there, like it's really gonna tie it together. But yeah, we'll get these bars in, at least that one and that one in the next part, with these like little contraptions and these little connectors. After that, we'll dive into the keys. These arms, we'll connect them all together, and then these are the final guys. We'll come across more as we go along, I can almost guarantee it, but like we're counting on one hand how many things are left before this entire Maya section is complete. So happy with how this is looking right now. I think I'm going to dedicate the majority of this weekend to continuing work on this. We're definitely, like, I'm not going to get it done this weekend, but like I want to get multiple parts done every single day this weekend, so I really just want to get to the high poly. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Actually, I have Zbrush open where I was experimenting with it a little bit. Things are going to be super nice when they're like polished. Like you see these seam lines in here, like it's going to look good. It's going to look good. This is a little blobby for my taste, but overall, we're getting there. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you learned something in this part. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next part of the tutorial. See ya.